Just back this week, Hawaii Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard has completed her first trip to Afghanistan to meet with military officials. She was getting a first-hand look at the status on the ground in the eastern part of the country, as well as a timeline and the progress of troop withdrawal in the country.
And joining us this morning with an update is Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. She joins us live from Washington. Good morning.
Good morning to both of you. How are you today?
We're doing great. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Nice to talk to you.
We have sort of a delay here, but you met with a military commander while you were overseas. What's the latest on the drawdown, and how are things looking on the ground there?
We did. It was a very short but very productive trip. Met with everyone from the top U.S. military commander, General Dunford, the U.S. ambassador to Afghanistan, and many others who are actually doing the work on the ground with the Afghan security forces. Was able to meet with a number of Hawaii troops, some who I had deployed with during my deployment with the Hawaii National Guard to Iraq, and was able to bring them a little gifts and taste from home, some Big Island cookies. But really, as far as the status on the ground, the accelerated timeline that was set is moving forward for withdrawing our troops as well as turning over the security to the Afghan National Security Forces. The capabilities of these forces are going strong, really. The confidence both that the security forces have within themselves, but also the confidence of the Afghan people in their ability to provide that security has grown tremendously, to the point now where they're leading and conducting a majority of the operations in Afghanistan completely on their own as Afghan forces.
Congresswoman, the Hawaii Army National Guard has about 142 left in Afghanistan. Can you explain a little bit more about meeting with those Hawaii soldiers and what you are hearing from them?
Well, we have both Hawaii National Guard soldiers as well as soldiers from Hawaii who are with based out of different units all across the country who are deployed to Afghanistan right now. And they're scattered on different missions all over the country. Our Hawaii National Guard soldiers are specifically tasked with training and advising and assisting the Afghan forces on what they call the SFAT teams. They've been doing an outstanding job, which is really showing through, again, this transfer that the Afghan forces are not only taking the lead, but at very high levels are conducting their own operations and doing things the Afghan way. You know, I've talked many times before about the only way Afghanistan can achieve stability is through the Afghan people, and that's what we're seeing happening. And very pleased that we will soon be seeing our Hawaii troops coming home in the next few months, as well as seeing the retrograde of personnel, vehicles, equipment, the logistical challenge of bringing everyone home.
Well, Congresswoman, we know that you're currently still with the Guard and have been deployed to Iraq and Kuwait. How was this trip for you personally, now that you're a Congresswoman?
Yeah, it was very strange, I have to admit, to be back there, to be back with soldiers who I deployed with before to Iraq, but wearing civilian clothes with no uniform, no combat boots. It was a very different experience, but really deepened my own feeling of responsibility in my job as a member of Congress to represent Hawaii and also to be a voice for our troops, to be a voice for our veterans, to make sure that we bring them home safely and quickly and do all that we can. We're seeing now especially, and I saw this with being in Afghanistan firsthand, but also when we look at the numbers that we're seeing and how much we spent in Afghanistan last year, $111 billion, and looking at how much we spent on missile defense as a country, $9.7 billion last year, and the great disparity there in numbers, and looking now at the threat that Hawaii is facing, as well as our country, from North Korea, and making sure that we do more to invest in those missile defense capabilities and do more to make sure that we have the resources to protect our families in Hawaii.
And speaking of that missile defense, that was one of the issues that you brought up yesterday when the president released his budget. And you also talked about Social Security in terms of the budget. So those are some of the reservations that you have as he released this?
Absolutely. You know, the president released his budget yesterday. It's the first step as we in Congress go through our responsibility and our job in working through and making sure that our constituencies and the needs that we see across the country are addressed. And those were two areas that I had some grave concerns, in particular with North Korea and the threats that we're facing, you know, in Hawaii, in Guam. You spoke earlier in your news update about the 2 Musudan missiles that are currently positioned and fueled and ready to be launched. These are real threats that we're facing, and we need to make sure that we back up the talk with the resources. Unfortunately, this year's budget, we're seeing a cut in missile defense, and it's already a small dollar amount when you look at the larger picture and the long-term threats, and it's something that we need to take more action on, and we need to provide those resources to make sure that happens.
Well, Congresswoman, thank you for speaking to us this morning. We know that the video that you brought back home was shot by yourself in Afghanistan, so we
Yes.
appreciate your efforts.
Thank you very much. Aloha.
Aloha.
Aloha. Now, to see this interview again, you can just head to the top video section of our website, kitv.com. It's now 5:40. We'll be right back.